Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope all of you are having an exceptional start to your weeks. In this class, everybody, we are looking at an IELTS Task 2 writing for either the academic or the general IELTS. Task 2 is a 40-minute writing task. It's an essay, and the topic for today is this. IELTS Task 2 writing, you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Some people urge that the government should invest in artists. This means the government should fund or pay money for artists. Others also think this is a waste of money. Write on both views and state your opinion. All right, we'll take a look at this question today and write a Band 9 essay. This question could come up on either the academic or the general IELTS. Welcome, Fuang. Hi, Abraham, Anna. Nice to see a lot of our members, Single and Savvy. Good to have our chat moderator, Carolina. Nice to have you. Risham, Ariadna, Segareda, good to have you in the class. Welcome, everybody. Again, this is Task 2 writing. Topic is investing in artists. The lesson, as usual, is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, visit us there. For the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. These are our websites. They have all of our materials that power these live classes, and we use them regularly to interact with students and for reading, listening materials, and lots more. This is aehelp.com here with the blue background. Click this big red button that's just beside me there. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, and it only costs about $40–50. I think everybody who uses the website says they improve their band score, and that's always good when you're paying $300 for an exam. Students, for general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. Again, same idea. Click that big red button and use the code DISH9 for an extra 10% discount. Yeah, Fuang, I'm getting over a cold. Absolutely. I'm feeling actually much better now than I did a couple days ago. I mentioned on, I think it was Friday's premium student class that I was coming down with something, and I felt it. I felt it on Friday. So you're right, Fuang. Yeah. Anonymous says, I got overall band 6. I don't know what to do. Anonymous, you have to figure out what were your areas of weakness, your strengths, lean into your strengths, and create a regular daily study schedule. That's your first step. Premium students, those of you who bought our courses on the website, your premium student links are out. I sent them a couple of days ago, so you should see them. Check your inboxes, check your spam or your trash folder if you don't see them there. And if you sent me an email requesting for those premium links, just give me 24 hours and I'll send you those links, okay? So premium students get 2 extra live classes each week. Okay. All right, Kubal says, I have to improve my reading skills. Can you help me? Kubal, absolutely. First step, join the premium course. Look at all the lessons there. Next step, make sure to attend the live classes. Premium students have a reading class this week. The apps are Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help. The apps will link to the websites. Instagram is IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. And if you have questions, if you're not sure, I see a lot of questions in the chat already. Just send me an email if you don't get an answer from me. So send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com or admin@aehelp.com. So the schedule, everybody, task 2 writing right now. Tomorrow we'll do speaking. We'll use some Zoom for that as well. And then premium students, you have reading on Thursday and speaking on Friday. So those are the classes to look forward to. All right, if anybody wants to check out a good speaking video, this is a great one. It is an Uzbek speaker of English. He's very fluent. He's a band 9. Okay. All right, there we go. The link is in the chat for that. Let's get into this task 2 writing, everybody. Here we go. Okay, so again, I'm looking below here. For me, it's actually in front. So when you get to task 2 writing, everybody, first step is just really read that question carefully. Now we're working on this together. I am looking at the chat for your sentences, okay? And I will teach you how to plan and write a task 2 essay using this question. All right, let's take a look. One more time. So again, in the writing section, don't rush, okay? It's writing, not reading. You have to read it carefully and slowly. So you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Some people urge means that they're kind of pushing the government or suggesting strongly to the government that they should invest in artists. Others also think this is a waste of money. Write on both views and state your opinion. Write at least 250 words, so minimum. Okay, so the first step when you read the question, everybody should know this, or a lot of people should know this because we have lots of videos, and I think a lot of people on the internet, a lot of IELTS trainers are saying this. Step 1 is paraphrase the question. Now, some people say, oh, this is your introduction or the start of your introduction. But it's not the start of your introduction necessarily, okay? Just a simple paraphrase is not enough for a good introduction. If you're just paraphrasing the question, you're going to get like a band 6, okay? So you need to do more. But it's a good first step. Just to paraphrase so that you understand the question and you start to think of vocabulary. So let's do that. So let's change the size here a little bit. Maybe 12.5. All right. Sure. All right, here we go. So, by the way, you can get ahead of me. I'll catch up. So if you write faster, that's good. Like Ariadna here already in the chat, which is really good. Let's see what Ariadna has. Ariadna writes, some individuals appeal to authorities for financing creators. I wouldn't paraphrase artists here, Ariadna. I would keep that subject the same, just to be very clear. Creators is more broad, it's more general. So I would stick with artists here. Artists are like painters, for example, or musicians, dancers. So I would keep it to artists, but I like the start. So some individuals appeal to authorities for financing artists. Sure. Others consider this as a financial loss. Discuss both aspects and give your own perspective. That's really nice, okay? So other than just that small adjustment, Ariadna, I wouldn't, again, paraphrase that subject in this case. So, but that's the only difference. Okay, good. Anahita. Yeah, there's lots of ways to paraphrase. Very nice. So this is the chat. Anahita says, certain individuals advocate authorities subsidizing artists. Okay, you don't need the on there. And you don't need the comma. So, but very nice use of the word subsidize. Subsidize means to financially help. Very nice vocabulary, Anahita. So Anahita writes, certain individuals advocate authorities subsidizing artists while others reckon that this is a financial waste. Explain both sides and your viewpoint. Careful with not too many commas, Anahita. You can get into what's called a comma splice, and that makes the reading awkward. Good. That's nice. Okay. Let me make the font a little bit bigger on those. So. There. So you can read those a little bit easier. Nice. Okay. All right. I'll write a a paraphrase here. So several members of public advocate governments to fund artists, while others believe that this is a waste of tax money. Ultimately, that's what we're talking about here. Government is funded by taxes. This is tax money. Explain both perspectives and your own viewpoint. Okay, everybody, before we get into writing the essay, is this first, second, or third person author? First, second, or third person voice of the author? What's the best here? What do you think? And again, students who are watching, if you're not sure what first, second, third person voice of the author is, it's definitely a good idea to use our academic IELTS courses at aehelp.com, gieltshelp.com. And when you're in the course, in the writing section, make sure that you review the essay types and the voices of the author. So here's the writing section. And here in this part, make sure to review that. It's very, very important that you understand voices of the author, first, second, third person voice, not just for the IELTS exam, but also for university. You could lose a lot of marks and have a lot of difficulties in your university classes if you don't understand voice of the author and essay types. Okay, so make sure to review those in your writing sections of the course. All right, aehelp.com, gieltshelp.com. Thanks, Carolina, for putting that in the chat. Okay, let's see what you think. Anahita says this is probably a first person. SK agrees. Abraham says first, I mean, my subjective voice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. So this is a first person. A lot of people, especially in the academic IELTS, think that, oh, it's always a third person because that's what my teacher said. But that's not the way it works. You have to understand first, second, third person. You have to understand what that means. This is a first person essay. So in this case, you use I, me, my, not us. It's called the subjective voice of the author. Yeah, and there's a very easy explanation. And obviously this is why a lot of the students figured this out pretty quick. The question says, write on both views and state your opinion. So state your opinion means it's my opinion. It's I believe, okay? And the other, so that's one reason it's clearly a first person voice. What's the other reason that this is clearly a first person voice? It's definitely not the, yeah, so Abraham's giving a little help there of what these are. So it's definitely the first person. One reason is it says state your opinion. So my opinion, obviously, right? What's the other reason that this is clearly a first person essay? Why? There's kind of another clear reason here why I would definitely choose the first person voice. By the way, this was an IELTS essay question on a previous exam, or a similar question. So this is a very real question, if you will. Okay. All right. So why? Why do you think? What's the other reason? There's another reason. It's because it's extremely subjective, right? So it says some people urge that government should invest in artists. And this is one of those questions where there's clearly two arguments. So both sides can be kind of argued, and it's personal opinion. There's no hard fact to support this, right? So it's very, very clear here. Okay. All right, because we're talking about giving money for art, which may or may not have value for society, right? It's very subjective. So it's that's the whole idea of the subjective voice of the author, right? Okay, so we've identified what the question is. We figure out the topic. What is the topic here, everybody? So some of you said government funds for artists. And if you thought that, that's great. That's the topic. That's what we're writing about, right? Government funding for artists. Okay? Government funding for artists. A controlling idea, okay? Controlling idea are the arguments here. So is it a good idea or a waste of money? Those are the controlling ideas. Okay, now let's get in a little bit into the topic. So, what is government funding for artists? What is that? So, the next step, step 2, always, is critical thinking. You should never just start writing an essay without thinking about your ideas. So you should always think first, like what, why, how. What am I writing about? Why am I writing about this? How am I writing about this? So you asked that about the controlling ideas. This is how you generate information. Okay. What is government funding for artists? What does that actually mean? No, definition of artist here, Ayadeji, is quite clear. An artist here refers to like a painter, sculptor, musician, dancer, so traditional arts. Okay. So, Deborah says it's allocating taxpayer money. To pay for artists, yeah, okay. Why would we do that? Yeah. So it's allocating tax or public funds to pay for artists, right? Okay, sure. Let's keep it simple. Why would we do that? So why do that? Why pay? Why give tax money to fund arts? What would be a reason to do that? Truth says to save culture. I don't think it's just to save culture. I think it's to promote culture. Would be a better answer here, Truth. So promote culture. Sure. Single and Savvy says it could help to promote tourism, culture, and tourism. Sure. To prevent people from becoming criminals, I think Anahita is a little bit of a stretch. Anahita says maybe to educate people. Okay. Luffy says for Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, economic empowerment. I think some of the main points of art are being missed here. Okay. So why give money to fund arts? Arts can be challenging to make money. That's one that comes to mind for me. Another one, exactly, Anahita, that's a much better thought. So to promote imagination and creativity in artistic expression. Okay. All right, sure. So art, don't forget, is being creative, is being imaginative, right? It's thinking outside the box. A lot of science, a lot of technology is born from art. Let's not forget. And definitely it can be challenging to make money in art, especially in the early days of an artist, right? Okay, so how can governments fund arts? What can they do? So what are some different ways? What are some different ways that governments can fund artists? Okay, while you think about it, I'll give you some ideas. So subsidizing. Now, subsidizing is when you give a bit of money to help make the bill or help pay for the bill. So subsidizing art galleries, scholarships, and bursaries for artists to attend school, tax benefits for selling art. Okay, so I think there are lots of different ways, okay, to fund artists, obviously. All right, now let's take the opposite. So for the negative, right, is kind of like what is not funding is kind of straightforward. It's simply just not giving tax money, right? So let's go for the negative here. So in the negative, why not fund artists? So why should the government not fund arts? Okay. So why not? What's a no? What's an argument against funding artists? Again, for those of you who are just joining, while everybody's thinking about why we should not fund artists, for those of you joining, we're working on task 2 writing. The question is, you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Some people urge that the government should invest in artists. Others also think this is a waste of money. Write on both views and state your opinion. So we have to think about both here, right? Okay. So why should the government not fund artists? Okay, Nitesh, you're just repeating the question when you say waste of money. They already say waste of money here. But why is it a waste of money? Okay. So waste of time, waste of money doesn't really explain. Okay, what's a better way to explain that? So how would a businessman explain that, or a businesswoman? Wasting money is not an explanation. It's just very kind of general, right? You need to be a lot more specific. Yeah, very nice, Alexander. That's exactly what I thought. It is difficult to get ROI. So there is a lack of ROI. No direct return on investment. If you're in business, that's what you need to know. ROI, return on investment. So they give $1 million for an art gallery and it just seems to take money, right? There does not seem to be a direct return on investment, right? It is extremely difficult to infer art that is of value. So it's very hard to figure out, okay, that's a painting that will be $1 million or that's a painting that's worthless. Yeah, difficult to measure value, right? Exactly. Okay, very good. So now you're thinking about your thesis, everybody. The thesis is your argument. And you want to decide, should the government fund artists or not? The easiest way, okay, is think about what society already does. So for the thesis is the most important sentence of your essay. It's in the introduction. It's the last part of your introduction. So thesis, think about what society does. So what does society do, Juan? What does society do, Awais? Mintu? Does society fund artists or no? So societies like India, Russia, Canada, Argentina, Uruguay, do they fund artists? Do they say, hey, yeah, we'll pay some money for that art gallery, or we'll try to help it out, or we'll try to create a scholarship for artists at this university? Do they give money for artists or no? Nat says they do. Phuong says in Vietnam they do. Single and Savvy says in Nigeria they don't. Mintu says, yeah, in my country they do. Juan Pablo says not enough. Natesh says maybe yes. Alexander says Russia does. Okay. Well, I know Canada does, so I will go from my own perspective. Canada definitely will fund artists. There could always be more, but hey, there's never enough, right? Every sector can use more funding, always. So I think the argument of not enough is probably true for just about every sector. So, you know, funnily people will say, well, some sectors like technology, but interestingly, those are some of the most underfunded. They fund themselves. Yeah. Yes, most societies do. And I think all societies try to. Okay, so B says funding artists is relatively new for governments in Nepal, but they try it, right? Okay. So yes, most societies do. So obviously there must be some value in that, right? Yeah, Ariadna says there are scholarships for students, grants for projects. Absolutely. Okay, so there's a reason for that. All right. Okay, so that's how I'm going to approach this essay. I'm going to approach it from the positive and write on both views. I will write about the negative first. So the introduction has a hook, a background, and a thesis. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, the hook is just a simple, interesting statement that introduces the topic. Okay, so hook, simple sentence that introduces the topic. Make it interesting. Okay, again, our topic, for those of you who missed it, is government funding artists. Okay. You write a hook, I write a hook, we'll compare the hook. Okay, so that's my hook. That's what I'm going to go with. Okay, I think it's good. I think it's true. How did I come up with that? Simple. I just looked at what's happening in society. And I think in most societies this is happening. I've traveled the world, and from what I've seen in most societies, this is a situation. Would you agree? Artists have been fighting for government funding for decades. I have a few artist friends, and they're always saying, yeah, the government should give us more funding. We need more help. Art has a lot of value. People don't recognize it. People never pay attention to how important art is until it's lost, until there's no art. That's when people realize how important it is. The government should give more money for it, right? So I think that's a very factual statement. And if I read that, so if I'm reading a newspaper or a magazine and I read that, then I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll read a little bit more. I have some friends who say that all the time, right? Ariadna says yes. Unforgettable Russian accent. I think that's Julia, right? Says absolutely. Okay, so simple is beautiful. Okay, simple is beautiful. You just have to think, right? Like government funding for artists. What do I hear about this? Oh yeah, of course, my artist friends, or when I hear about art, they're always saying governments need to give more money for the art, right? So artists have been fighting for government funding for decades. Okay, now the background is the definition of terms. Okay. And the importance of the question. So the order doesn't matter here. You can state the importance of the question. You can define the terms here. Let's define artists. And let's define government funding. So give me the background for this, right? Okay, everybody following me so far? So students who are kind of coming in right now, what we're doing is we're writing the task 2 essay for the IELTS exam step by step. So it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of recipe, okay? And a lot of IELTS lessons teach you to just paraphrase the question and then say, this essay will discuss both sides and give my view. Okay, so a lot of teachers and a lot of courses will just say, paraphrase the question like Anahita did here with the paraphrasing, which was good paraphrasing for understanding the question, Anahita. And then they'll write something like this essay will discuss both views and give an opinion below. Okay, this is just so everybody's really clear on this. This type of introduction is a band 6, even if you write it with perfect English. It's just an okay introduction at best. This is not a band 7, 8, or 9, and this is not going to work in university. In university, the professor, or in college, they will literally just cross it off and say rewrite your essay. The reason being that this is like a junk food start. There's no value, there's no opinion, there's no author behind it. Even Chat GPT can do better. So even a simple software can write a better introduction these days. So this kind of introduction, like certain individuals advocate authority subsidizing artists, while others reckon that this is a financial waste. This essay will discuss both views. It's just a waste. In the real world, I wouldn't even read that. I would read the first 3 words and then that'd be it. So you can't write like that. You have to have standard, effective, persuasive essay structure, and that's what I'm here to teach you, and that's what your course teaches you at aehelp.com, and that's why I keep telling you to join the package there, so you can learn the right way to write for these essays. Okay, all right. So let's keep going here. Let's see if anybody figured out the background so far. The background would be a definition of artists and government funding. So Anahita says, authorities have been subsidizing artists so that their nations become developed by the expectation of the creativity of these individuals. That sounds more like an argument, Anahita. Single and Savvy says, governments across the world are faced with the dilemma of allocating funds to various sectors, including the arts, while some argue that investing in artists is necessary for economic development. Okay, I would probably keep it a little bit simpler. I think Single and Savvy, that's going to reveal itself in the essay anyways. So this is my hook. Let's put an H there. I would make the background just a simple definition that we already, don't forget your what, why, hows, okay? So what is government funding for artists? Allocating tax or public funds, right? Which could be used for other purposes like development of infrastructure, supporting healthcare, right? And then why fund the artists? Promoting culture, tourism, and there's a lack of money, right? So artists have been fighting for government funds for decades. Dancers, singers, and graphic artists have difficulty financially starting careers, and taxpayer money is needed to promote their education and career. Okay, so that would be my background. All right, something like that. So artists have been fighting for government funding for decades. Dancers, singers, and graphic artists have difficulty financially starting careers, and taxpayer money is needed to promote their education and work. So I don't repeat careers. Okay, something like that. All right. Now, I think I skipped over my thesis statement, right? And that's why maybe some of you are confused. You're like, he skipped his thesis, right? My thesis would simply come from the fact that I do think that they should be funded, and even though some people think there's no direct return on investment. Although it is difficult to measure a direct return on investment in the arts sector, I think that artists should be funded because it promotes culture and innovation in society. That would be my thesis statement. Okay. Now, again, everybody, keep in mind that I'm showing you kind of like a band 9 start here. Okay. How to start a band 9 essay. And this would be your introduction. Okay. So here we go. Just read with me. See what you think. Tell me your honest opinion. Now, when you read your introduction, you should always cross-reference with your question. So when you finished writing your introduction, ideally what you do for this one paragraph is you go back, and I recommend doing this even in the actual IELTS exam. So take that extra minute. I think it's worth the time. And just read the question. So go, okay, IELTS Task 2 writing, you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Some people urge that the government should invest in artists. Others also think that this is a waste of money. Write on both views and state your opinion. Write at least 250 words. Okay, and then read the introduction and get your brain thinking, okay, is there a strong connection? Am I really clearly answering this question? Okay. Artists have been fighting for government funding for decades. Dancers, singers, and graphic artists have difficulty financially starting careers, and taxpayer money is needed to promote education and work. Although it is difficult to measure a direct return on investment in the arts sector, I think that artists should be funded because it promotes culture and innovation in society. Okay, and I could probably, if I really wanted to simplify, probably just leave it as culture and innovation. Okay. What do you think? Does it work? Will you keep reading? Does it make sense? Can you tell what I'm going to write about? Can you kind of predict body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and the conclusion? Does it make sense? What do you think? Give me your honest opinion. If you don't like it, I want to know. If you think, nah, I don't think that's a good answer to that question, or that doesn't make sense, let me know. Okay, it's arguable. Again, it's a subjective essay. We don't all have to have the same opinions, right? Let's see what some of the students are writing. Okay, Anahita says painters, photographers, and dancers are considered as artists. The money that is spent on them to start and continue careers by governments is considered as subsidization. Anahita, that was really good. I just made a couple of really tiny suggestions. Deborah, let's take a look at your thesis. Deborah writes, authorities need to pay attention to the creative art industry since it is a way of making life lively for individuals in society, the country, and the world at large. Where's the negative side, Deborah? Remember, Deborah, the question, right? It says, write on both views. So it says write on both views. Okay, so you have to write on both views. Unforgettable Russian accent. Julia says, I learned that listing is not appreciated like dancers, singers, and etc. Definitely don't write etc, etc. That has no value. Listing is not a bad idea when you're giving a definition, Julia. So here I'm defining, right? I'm defining what an artist is. Dancers, singers, and graphic artists. Those are defining artists. And that is definitely a way to explain and explore a topic in an essay, Julia, where you give a subject and then you define it through parameters, and that can be a list of nouns, right? So math, algebra, calculus, and trigonometry are all essential parts of high school learning, right? It's a very standard way of writing, okay? Awais says, can I see the full essay? Patience, Awais, patience. Rome was not built in a day. We're getting there. All right. So now we switch to body paragraph 1. Now, I can do this a few different ways. I can go negative, positive, negative, positive. So I can write a little bit about the negative and then write a positive, right? So I can do this. While it is true that giving money for art scholarships might not clearly create profit within a few years, the long-term return on cultural expression is clearly observable. Okay? So here I'm presenting one side of the argument in my topic sentence. While it is true that giving money for art scholarships might not clearly create profit within a few years, the long-term return on cultural expression is clearly observable, right? So I give the negative, which is one side, people who think it's a waste of money, and then I immediately go into the positive side, which is what I'm arguing, what I believe in, right? The long-term return on cultural expression is clearly observable. Now I have to explain what that is. So what is the cultural expression, right? Anahita is asking, why is avoiding crime not a good argument? Anahita, we have to try to see the... So, generally speaking, in most cases, the goal of society is not to invest money to avoid a negative. The goal of society is to invest money to encourage a positive. The best way to eliminate negatives is to encourage positives. And when we focus on that perspective, then the end goal will be a lot more viable, a lot more possible. Okay, so the logical argument is much better to focus on that. I hope that makes sense. Now, that wasn't just a small point, everybody. When you want to create something beautiful, focus on the beauty of the creation, not on eliminating the ugly, right? So always focus on the positive side of arguments. It's a very important tip. Okay. All right, so now we want to explain this. So this is the explanation. So the first sentence is the topic. Now the explanation comes, right? And so what do we mean the long-term return? So it may be that the government invests $50 million to fund post-secondary art institutes. Even though this $50 million, let's use symbols. I'm trying to save my word count. May appear as a loss, the paintings, songs, and other fine arts that result from the hard work of graduates shape the identity of nations. Okay. So this is the explanation. Notice how I start to go into some quantitative measures, like actual dollar amounts, right? Instead of just saying a lot of money. So I say like $50 million. And go into more specific subjective nouns like post-secondary art institutes. Okay. So here I'm basically explaining my topic sentence, right? And then as the last step, I give an example. Okay. All right. So what would be a good example? Now here, this has to be a real world kind of example, one that we can observe, one that we can see, one that we have experienced. So my cultural identity as a Canadian has been shaped by, okay, so here's where I give a personal example. And before I run ahead here, I want to see what you're coming up with. So again, we're writing here together, right? And this is where it's good to know a little bit about art. So before you sit your IELTS exam, I highly, highly recommend just doing some reading and research on most of the school subjects that you would have studied in high school, like art, geography, biology, chemistry. Okay. So my cultural identity as a Canadian has been shaped by many of its famous artists, like Emily Carr, who now has a university in her name in Vancouver and receives considerable government funding. Okay. So if you ever have the chance, look her up, Emily Carr. There's a street not too far from my house called Emily Carr Street. So my cultural identity as a Canadian has been shaped by many of its famous artists like Emily Carr, who now has a university in her name in Vancouver, which receives considerable government funding. So that's kind of the proof in the pudding, right? Is that's what it is, right? Now, if you don't have that example, then you will have to come up with one, especially if you're arguing for this side, right? So I'm purely showing this side, but there are lots of different ways, students, that you can do examples. Just make it kind of real world. Okay, that's what's most important about the examples, is that they are real life examples. Now, they don't have to be true. You can make this up. In my case, it is true. Emily Carr, University of Fine Arts, does exist. And it could be performing arts, single and savvy. Like somebody would say, well, fine, you know about that. But, you know, like if I were in Russia, this is reaching out to Alexander and Julia. One that comes to my mind for Russia as the identity of, if I think about Russian arts and government funding, I wonder if you're going to guess what I'm going to write. For Russia, I would say the Russian ballet. World famous. I'm sure that the Russian ballet has gotten funding from the government over the years, and I'm sure that ballet dancers get funding from the government. If I'm wrong, let me know, Alexander. If the government in Russia does not fund ballet dancers and ballet schools, let me know. But I have a feeling that it probably does. Okay. All right, and I bet you in Vietnam as well, Phuong, there's government funding for dance schools and for traditional Vietnamese arts. Okay. Alexander says, mostly maybe from investors. Yeah, and Julia says, great, and for Canadian, I'm impressed by Albert, Gilbert, and Garu. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they're out there. Okay, right? You just have to think about it. Okay, be visual. And again, explore the world around you. All right, so now comes the second body paragraph. And body paragraph 2 follows the same structure as body paragraph 1. So topic sentence plus explanation plus example, and then comes the conclusion. The conclusion will have the key points restated, argument strengthened, and a take-home message. That is the structure of basically most persuasive essays. Okay, so this structure that I'm showing you here, excuse me, is basically true for most persuasive essays. Okay, so you have an introduction, you have a hook, background, thesis, then you have a body paragraph 1, 2. For the IELTS, 2 body paragraphs are enough. For university, you can have 3, 4, 5, depending. Okay, Phuong says, yes, sir. Right. Yeah, Phuong, absolutely, right? I know that in many Asian countries like Japan, China, Vietnam, there's definitely government funding and interest for a lot of that cultural preservation of those ancient cultural practices of dance and song. Absolutely. When I was in Japan, the kabuki theater, the Japanese theater, the kabuki theater, I know got a significant amount of government funding for sure. Okay, so body paragraph 2 is the second one. It's innovation. Okay, so here I would again just start with the negative, even though certain people may feel that art has no practical application for everyday life. Many innovators explain that inspiration is founded in artistic expression. Okay? So this would be my topic sentence for body paragraph 2. Even though certain people may feel that art has no practical application in everyday life, many innovators, or if you don't know the word innovators, you could say inventors, explain that inspiration is founded in artistic expression. Now you could say that simpler. So students, even if you're like, well, I don't have that vocabulary, there are simple ways to say this, okay? All right. And then you explain that and you give an example, okay? The futurist, I'm jumping to the example here just to show you where we can go. I'm just excited. So the author, Jules Verne, not only predicted, but also promoted the future with his creative literature. Inspiring generations to build rocket ships and hot air balloons. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that very powerful and inspiring thought for today. Okay, so sorry, that's not my explanation, that's my example. I don't want to confuse you there. It's my example. So, I know that the author, right? Alexander, do you agree with me? Jules Verne, he's world famous, right? His name is in many different ways and forms. Hungarians say that he's Hungarian. Verne is his name in Hungarian, but anyway. Jules Verne and his books, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Around the World in 80 Days, I believe, are some of the titles. Yep, that's it. Ariadna, I just said it right as you wrote it. Around the World in 80 Days. Okay. Great book, by the way, students. If you want to practice some reading in English, read the book. This is my homework for you, and then you'll grow an appreciation for art. Finish this essay. I will post it in 48 hours to youtube.com/ahelp/community. Okay. Okay, and then your homework too. If you haven't already, read a Jules Verne book. Be inspired. Of course, in English. Okay? Alright. Very nice, Alexander. I love it. All right, students, that's it for your class today. That's what a task 2 looks like. Tomorrow we've got speaking, and I'm going to speak with you using Zoom and YouTube together. For premium students, you've got reading and speaking coming up on Thursday and Friday. If you want to join those classes, everybody, sign up for our premium course at aehelp.com and gieltshelp.com. Those are the websites that we use to power these live classes. So check those out. Carolina, thank you so much for moderating. I hope everybody enjoyed this class as much as I did. For those of you who are wondering where to go for those premium courses, aehelp.com is here. Click the big red button over there. One-time payment, lifetime access, you're good to go. It doesn't cost a lot. It's like 40 or 50 bucks US. And then here is the general IELTS one. It looks like this. Lots of tools, videos, apps, much more for you with that. Again, click that big red button. Students, have an awesome rest of the day. I look forward to seeing you at the same time tomorrow for your speaking class. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. Much love to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Stay positive. Be yourself. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.